call this meeting of the Board of Directors to order at 6:08 p.m. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded, and let's do roll call.
Dr. Brandt?
Here.
Dr. Freeman?
Here.
Dr. Topliff?
Here.
Dr. Hobart?
Here.
Dr. Paul?
Here.
Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders past, present, and future, who call this place, Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. With that, we do not have consent agenda today. We're going to move to the public comment period. It's the time when any member of the public may speak on anything that's not on the agenda. Don't worry, your interview will be next. Any public comment out there?
No one's hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, I'll close public comment period. And we are going to move to the board vacancy interviews. So we have two of our candidates here today, and we have a total of 4 candidates. Is that correct, Jonathan?
Yes.
So just for board members' purposes, feel free to pull up the questions that we have, and I figure maybe we can go down the line for each of the questions that we have. I want to thank everyone that's applied and those that will be joining us soon for your applications. We're looking forward to getting to know you. So the first interview we have is Sarah Nicholson. So I want to give you the opportunity, if you'd like to give sort of a brief opening statement about yourself, and then we'll go into the questions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Nicholson, and I'm from the Bay Area. I'm a third-year student at IVCSD, and I actually just transferred here from the University of Oregon. So I've only lived in Isla Vista for about the past 4 months, but I've loved it here so far. I'm an environmental studies major, and I hope to go into environmental policy or city planning, but I'm not sure directly what I'm going to do yet. I grew up going to city council meetings with my father in my hometown in the Bay Area, which is kind of what caused me to want to go into city planning and policy. And that's about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being with us. We're looking forward to getting to know you. Do we want to start with the first question and start on the far end of the table with you, Director Palat, and then we'll move down as time goes on?
Sure. Why do you want to join the Isla Vista Board of Directors?
Yeah, so I mainly want to join due to my major and my career path going down into the planning and policy route. I also have really enjoyed living in Isla Vista so far, and I believe the location and unique community environment makes the town very unique. I am motivated in increasing safety in Isla Vista and focusing on community engagement. I believe being on the board is a great way to express my personal opinions, contributions, and things that I could, different mindsets to improve Isla Vista. I'm also a part of a variety of different clubs and organizations on campus, such as Isla Vista Surfrider. We are a chapter, like the nation-based chapter, that focus on ocean conservation, and specifically in Isla Vista, we do a number of cleanups. I'm also part of Gauchos Go Green, which is another environmental organization on campus, where I'm an intern in the food certification division, where I go around Isla Vista and work with local businesses to help them become food certified and reach their sustainability goals. I'm also a part of intramural soccer, which is just more fun. I'm a part of Greek Life, and then also a worker at Core Power. And I think the combination of all of these different organizations has allowed me to talk to a lot of different people and get a lot of different opinions on people and their experiences living here.
Thank you.
And the next question is, what would you do if you believed you needed more accurate and complete information in order to make a board decision?
Yeah, I think communication is the main thing, talking to as many people as possible who have experience with a specific issue. I also think taking a week to go back and research and maybe talk to experts or get more background information on the given topic so that when you do have to come to a decision, you're as prepared as possible.
The next question, how would you collect and respond to feedback from Isla Vista community members?
I think by collecting it, going out into the community, maybe participating in the events that Isla Vista community is giving out, so you can have one-to-one conversations with those in a natural setting. I also believe increasing Q&A sessions and public forums would be a good way to collect these opinions. Taking all of this into account, thinking it over, discussing it with the board, and then also creating a clear game plan would be a way to implement these considerations in policy.
What will success for you in this role look like a year from now? In your mind, what kind of things create an experience of success?
Yeah, I think personally doing as much as you can and putting as much time and commitment into a given project is what I find successful. I think it would be just focusing as much as I can and doing as much on our given topics, cutting corners, and just helping as many people as possible over the time in the committee.
Is this really just one question?
The last one,
I should just read that whole,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Have
You
you
got it in
attended or
advance.
watched a board meeting of IVCSD or some other elected body? Was there an issue raised that you felt strongly about? How would you express your stance on the issue? If you were on the board and it came time to cast your vote, what role would community concerns, state, local, and federal laws, the input of staff and board members, and your own values and beliefs have in determining your vote?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I have not been given the chance to attend the meeting in person, and the videos I've seen are very dated. But an issue I'm passionate about in Isla Vista is sustainability and increasing the sustainability around the city. This might include waste management specifically. We have a big trash problem, and that gets into the ocean. It gets all over the streets. So working on limiting the waste and increasing pickups would be a problem I'd like to combat. Also, I think transportation, parking, and then safety in that sense is a big problem I'd like to work on in the board. I think that would be due to increasing street lights, creating more vibrant lines for bike paths, increasing public transportation via different bus stops would be a great way to improve this problem. That is the main issue when I'm talking to individuals in my classes and various organizations that they pose the difficulty with transportation. And then as far as the last question, I would take the compilation of all of my past experiences, different classes in planning and policy, different state mandates and backgrounds in policy, and as well as my personal values and sustainability, community engagement, and helping others into account when I'm making my decisions and when I'm contributing my thoughts to the board.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you for those answers. Are there any other questions that the board wants to ask? I will ask one more question, which is, so this board of directors, term of this office is 2 years from now until November of 2026. Do you think you can commit to serving out the full term in office?
So I am graduating June of 2026, and I'm planning on staying until the end of that summer. I am not sure if I can commit to after that, if I'm being completely honest, just because it's up in the air, my post-grad option. But if possible, yes, but I can't give you a clear answer.
Totally understand. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
I have another question. Could you tell us a bit more about your Surf Riders work?
Yeah, so I'm a part of Isla Vista Surf Riders, I already said, and I am a part of the event planning committee, where we are working on fundraisers to raise money for the national chapter and Surfrider Foundation, which protects the ocean and creates policy. And then in my specific work, I've been planning and organizing beach cleanups and helping engage the community and get more participants to come and clean up the coast for about 2 hours a week. We also have a number of big fundraisers coming up, like a competition where we have raffles, and we've been working with local businesses to gain prizes and donations. And it's all just going to the ocean cause.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Well, thank you very much. I want to give you the chance to close with anything else that you want to share with us. And yeah.
Yeah, I think just thank you for giving me this time. Yes, I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Sure.
Okay, now we're going to move to our second interview, which is with Esteban Solis. So I want to give you the chance as well to make an opening statement just about who you are and introduce yourself.
Okay, great. Well, it's nice to be here again. Thank you for having me. I'll start with providing basic information about me. I was born in Port Wayne, California, and in 93 and 94, I came to Isla Vista. I started working with CalPERS the summer before I came to UCSB as a freshman. That was exciting, working on the Old Growth Forest campaign of the time. And I graduated in 1998 with a degree in environmental studies. And I also learned a lot about geography. As a student, I was very active in different groups through Associated Students, and did well in school, graduated on the Dean's List, and received special honors and awards during my graduation with the Environmental Studies Department, the Outstanding Service Award. And after graduating, I had a number of jobs in public service, primarily in public works and resource management. Prior to that, I had some experience with political consulting and working on various campaigns, including people who were elected into office. I have made efforts to start an organization with the acronym WTF. And the Women's Task Force, the Weed Task Force, and it's growing into a conglomerate that includes the Weekend Task Force and the Water Task Force. Here in Isla Vista, I plan to expand on those operations. But definitely I'd be thrilled joining the team here. You guys are a great group. I'm glad that finally here in Isla Vista, this unique entity was created. And I'll get more into that as you ask me the next questions.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Solis. Director Plot, do you want to start with the questions?
Why do you want to join the Isla Vista Board of Directors?
There's 2 or 3 primary reasons. The first I talked about a little bit, that I have certain visions about working on certain special projects here in Isla Vista. The second is I'm already active in various projects here in the community with the different organizations like Food Not Bombs and other organizations that reach out to the homeless, the religious community here as well, feeding the homeless population, and I've contributed to expanding those operations and have made partnerships with the different organizations and individuals that do this kind of work. In the last year, I have volunteered for Community Services District and with CalPERG again. They were working this summer on their marine forest campaign, marine ecosystems campaign, and they were teaming up with the Community Services District to pick up micro trash that makes its way into the marine ecosystem. And I was doing similar volunteering with the Isla Vista Parks and Recreation District recently. But if I may go back, way back in 1997, I was involved with the Yes on Measure A campaign, which was successful. So to make a long story short, I'm already active in the community, working on various projects, and so I want to continue on that legacy and serve here with the board and work on the composting that we do, transportation projects, expanding the recreational activities of the Community Services District. That's a goal 7.4. And working on public safety as well here in Isla Vista. That's always important to everybody. Of course, being an environmental science, an environmental scientist, I'm concerned about the ecosystem, our local ecosystem, about all of our sustainability practices, and striving to make Isla Vista a model for sustainability for a community of our type. I don't want to take too much on that second reason, because the third one is the one that really caught my eye when I was studying the history of the Community Services District. I was amazed at all of the similarities that have to do with the history of the Associated Students Recycling Program. I think you all know the history of the Community Services District and how it got started better than I did. Measure F failed, but then you came back with Measure K and secured the funding that was being offered by the university, and the ultimatum that they had for the Community Services District to secure its own funding. So it happened with Measure K, and that's great. Well, with the Associated Students Recycling Program, something similar happened. We put before a referendum through Associated Students for the students to vote to have their BART fees finance a recycling program that was not really existing before. I remember becoming involved first as a volunteer. I was working at the chemistry department, and I was volunteering, gathering data from the university, doing waste stream analysis, even dumpster diving. And we put information together and to assess the need for a recycling program, and students voted 87% approval to finance the recycling program from their fees. And that provided funding for the basic infrastructure of the program. And furthermore, we applied for a grant with the Department of Conservation, and they provided at least 200,000 and then some, so that we can purchase the 10 containers that are on campus. And I worked, I found myself working as an intern for them and became I started the outreach program for AS Recycling and became the first outreach coordinator. And today, the recycling since then, it's incredible to see how much it has grown and how much it has matured since we were first working on it back in the 90s. Today, they also have those big belly containers all over the place. They don't just have the bikes that they're hauling like we did. They have these little trucks that they drive around. And I just can't help but to feel so proud to see how much it has grown. And that right there is what makes an organization successful. That right there is what shows what a great group of people it is that work together and have a good time doing it. They grow themselves as a team, as an organization, and the projects that they work on are successful, and they build upon themselves and grow into the future. So it was really interesting to find out how the Isla Vista Community Services District went through something similar to come into existence and to secure funding. So, by the way, another reason I am interested is because I'm also interested in working with waste management and recycling as part of the sustainability goals and composting. Wow, this was back in 1994 when I was volunteering in the Ivy Parks. And I was given a tour and learned about the compost piles. Back then, these compost piles were like the size of a standing person. And you would stick the pitchfork in them and turn them, and the steam would be coming out of them. They would get so hot. But yeah, so the Ivy Parks and Recreation District, the Community Services District, these are organizations that have evolved over time, and that evolution and people's cooperativity and excitement and willingness to see these projects through, no matter what it takes, is what is the glue that holds these organizations together and makes them successful, and it makes them here to stay. And when you're here to stay and you are respected as an organization that is taking care of the community, making changes where they need to be made, and having this successful evolution and co-evolution with other entities around, businesses, other non-governmental organizations, is so key. It is such a blessing. And the Isla Vista Community Services District is an example of said organization, and I am eager and excited to join your team to help move these policy forward that you have already been doing so greatly. Yes.
Our next question is, what would you do if you believed you needed more accurate and complete information in order to make a board decision?
Well, it's always the most prudent thing to ask the providers of this information when we're in a situation where we need more information. Maybe these providers of information, originators of information are needing something from us or asking for us, something from us, approval on a project or something that has to do with funding. It could be anything, right? So, I am one who does not like to just move to a decision if we don't have to, because it's not just about us. We're doing this for the public, for our constituents, and whatever we vote on, whatever we make a motion and move to settle is we're bounding not just ourselves, not just this group, but the whole community is being bound by this. All of our constituents, the people, local businesses, everyone is being bound to this. So what we do is important. And so we have to make sure we have the best information that we can. There could be those times where the ball is in our court and we have to act. And we're under some kind of a ultimatum to act and make a decision. And we take the best information we have on hand and we act on it. And there's another question down the line. We look at federal, state, and local policy, because that's what sets our boundaries, and make the best decision. But if we do have the luxury to ask the providers and originators of the data that we're talking about, we should wait and gather more information if it's feasible, if it's possible, and make a better, more informed decision. You're welcome.
Next question is, how would you collect and respond to feedback from Isla Vista community members?
With respect to collecting information, I think it is important to make it as easy as possible for everybody from the public, all constituents, to be able to participate, be open to receiving information from all the multi-modes of communication that exist, from scanning something to emailing to personal contact. Personal contact is always the greatest because communication is not just written and spoken, it's very much nonverbal as well. Being at events, being visible, tabling, going out and talking to people in the community. Of course, there's flyers, there's online forums, there's all of that stuff for electronic means of participation for individuals who might have to do it that way. But making it accessible to everyone is important to me, and I think it is important to any agency. So I'll stop there. Yes.
And I'll just point out, in terms of time management, we've allotted about another 4 minutes for your interview. So we want to be sure and make it through.
Thank you.
What will success for you in this role look like a year from now? In your mind, what kinds of things create an experience of success?
Okay. I believe I've already mentioned some of that already, but here for the Isla Vista Community Services District is making sure that we're sticking to the goals of the organization and keeping the basic system that we have running, and taking care of those basics, because that is the foundation of what we do. And in addition to that is seeing these projects that we propose and the visions that we have, seeing them come through, having the energy and the follow through to make them work out successfully. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's a challenge, but we can to overcome obstacles and to make all of the projects that we are working on work to their best ability and to their best outcome. As I mentioned earlier, state, federal, local laws. We're working with other organizations like the Coastal Commission, like the LAFCO, Land Agency Formation Commission. We're working with the County Board of Supervisors. So these are our boundaries. These are the government entities and the laws. We're working with the university, and they set boundaries. So those are our boundaries, but public input is important. And what the public has to say, what constituents have to say, what non-governmental organizations and local businesses have to say is important in how we conduct our business and how we make decisions.
Have you attended or watched a board meeting of IVCSD or some other elected body? Was there an issue raised that you felt strongly about? How would you express your stance on the issue if you were on the board and it came time to cast your vote? What role would community concerns, state and local and federal laws, the input of staff and board members, and your own values and beliefs have in determining your vote?
Like I mentioned earlier, state, federal, local laws are setting boundaries, and the agencies that provide that guidance. Now here, the staff and the board members are an important part of the decision-making process, and what they have, what these team members have to say is very important to me, because it's important for us to work together and have a good consensus and good resolve about what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it. That's the most important thing, is us staying together. And also what the public has to say is important, because that's who we represent. Organizations that go above and beyond to take the time and care about what we're doing, they have an important input. And also businesses and the local businesses, that's very important as well too. So all of this affects my decisions. My personal concerns, it's not about me or about us, and that's something we have to be careful about, but it is good to have a personal perspective, regardless of what is before us and how we're deciding, but not let that personal perspective take over.
Excellent. Thank you, Esteban, for answering the questions. Are there any other questions that board members want to ask? I'll ask the same question just in fairness. If you are appointed to the board of directors seat, will you be able to commit to serving out the term through November of 2026?
Yes, absolutely. That will be no problem at all.
And I'll ask, are you a returning Isla Vista resident after being away, or have you been here for a long time?
For the beginning of the turn of the millennium, that first decade, I would say I was mostly spending it in Ventura County, but other than that decade, I have pretty much been here in the community. I did a lot of traveling as well, but this is since the 90s, this is once again the time when I'm like solid here in the community, full-time staying here in the community and not really traveling anywhere. The reason being is because I'm going back to school. I'm halfway done with a certificate in computer science through UC Extension, and I'm using that as a springboard to get into UCSB for a master's program in computer science.
All right, seeing no other questions, thank you very much, Esteban.
Thank you, Spencer. And the rest of the members of the board, it's an honor.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our third interview, and we have Eric Carlson.
Hi.
You've seen the drill, a chance to make an opening statement, and then we'll go through the questions.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Carlson. I am a fourth-year chemistry major. I am in a concurrent master's program, the BSMS program, to study material science. I'm a big believer in renewable technology, things like sodium ion, sodium solid state, lithium solid state batteries, for example, as well, to ultimately electrify the future moving forward, right? I am here today because I'm extremely interested in the political process by which kind of the youth generation is going to be getting involved in the future. And at the same time, I'm a very large proponent of professional development, especially for the younger generation. And for them to be able to have these types of experiences and be able to participate in such a thing as a political process like the Isla Vista Community Services District, I believe it's incredibly exciting, and I hope to get as much as I can out of it. I also serve in Associated Students. I have served in Associated Students for about 3 years. I served for 2 years as a campus senator, and as of right now, I serve as the Attorney General for the association. I handle legal code review, and so far have been using my experience to kind of review certain policies relating to our governance boards, the current ongoing and operations of our Parnell Center, located straight north of us, as well as advocating on the behalf of other student organizations and ensuring that they have access to resources that they need in order to continue the things, programming for student advocacy, as well as providing things such as basic needs. Absolutely, let's try to get started with the questions.
All right. For the first question, why do you want to join the IVCSD Board of Directors?
I'm extremely interested in IVCSD specifically because it's my local government close to home. I come from a small town, Coronado, in San Diego area, and funnily enough, their city council has a vacancy just like us, right? The extent of government or the amount of resources that they have doesn't exactly dictate, whether or not a vacancy is going to show up or not. And so coming from this kind of small town background and understanding the value that these kind of like small town institutions have on the residents there, it has opened my eyes to experience such as this. And so as someone who is kind of getting close to graduating from my undergraduate degree and then pursuing an additional year through the master's program here, that'll take me all the way to June 2026. And again, being able to serve out that term until November of 2026. I'm interested in IVCSD because of its direct access to resources in providing those resources to its community members. I've spent 3 years advocating on the behalf of my peers and my colleagues on campus, and I look forward only to expanding that reach to the greater community. I have also worked as the vice chair of the Parnell Center. This is a recent appointment of mine, and it has taught me how incredibly important it is to not only advocate on students' interests, but also on behalf of our community partners as well. When it comes to creating change and ultimately advocating for the end goals that we want, whether it be applying for grant funding, whether it be applying or petitioning our county board of supervisors, whether it be looking out or testing for water quality or advocating to make sure that police are held accountable in the means of making sure that we aren't falling prey to predatory practices. All of those come only when you're working hand in hand together with your larger community partners. It comes to make sure that all of us seated at the table have that kind of say and are working together to make those ends meet. And I believe, and that is exactly why I hope to join you guys at that table.
Thank you.
Our next question is, what would you do if you believed you needed more accurate and complete information in order to make a board decision?
When I first joined the Associated Students Senate, some of the largest issues that we had were that students would make decisions without all the information at their disposal. And it wasn't exactly because, the information didn't exist, right? It wasn't like people weren't collecting the data. It was in large part because some students, And not exactly part of ignorance or even negligence, but simply the fact that they didn't know what resources they really had available to them. My kind of philosophy and some of the things that I've learned from those experiences are, if you don't need to get it done that week, table it, right? You get more eyes on it, the better it is, right? The more collaborators that you have, the more time that you have to be able to research certain policies, whether it be legislation that you have at your disposal, whether it be policies pulled from committee work, whether it be students who have brought information to you on behalf of like a petition, for example. There's always another side to the story. There's always another side to the coin. And when it comes to policymakers, when it comes to even students like me who will most likely be pursuing a career in STEM in the far off future, you can't publish things unless you have all the information ready for you. You can't characterize a material unless you have 6 different ways to test it. It's incredibly important to make sure that you receive more than one source, always. This comes into play where representation is important. And oftentimes something that my generation is learning is that you can have overrepresented parties just as you can have underrepresented parties. And how can you ensure that you are not, how can you ensure that you are bringing those underrepresented voices to the table? There has to be forms of outreach. There has to be forms that can kind of check all your boxes. And so for me, patience is a virtue, right? We can take our time. Nothing ultimately, if the decision isn't handled that week, I've been making these reports to the senators in AS week after week after week. They have these self-imposed deadlines, right? Only in terms of when we ultimately are working together with perhaps our county board of supervisors or state assemblymen, where we will be met with potentially deadlines. The solution to those are to operate accordingly, right? It's to manage our time effectively and to make sure that we are making constant progress on our goals, to ensure that we can make and meet our deadlines without feeling the pressure of being rushed, and without feeling the pressure of feeling like we don't have enough data at our disposal. There's always methods to gathering that data. We have to employ those methods. Thank you.
How would you collect and respond to feedback from ILVCS community members?
All right, perfect. This is a great segue. When it comes to responding to community members, we've had our own issue in associated students where we don't have the best access to the students that aren't directly part of our internal function. And we are absolutely constantly, it's almost a constant periodic review and revision. It's a cycle of revision where we're constantly analyzing how we're getting in touch with students and how we're trying to get out to them and see how can we better get access to those voices and get access to those ears and get access to those individuals. And surprisingly, it kind of changes year over year. Some students, they're more receptive to things like in the dining halls, for example. Sometimes they're more receptive to things in their dormitories. When it comes to my time in AS, we have found that students who come to public forum, they are the ones that we are eye to eye with. They're the ones that we have to we reconcile their concerns. We try to implement them in our decision making. But what about everybody else who doesn't even know that the meeting is taking place? In my time at Associated Students, I am the author of our Committee Rubric Act. It was devised to completely restructure our legislative branch. So to instead of worrying about internal affairs and external affairs, we wanted to prioritize outreach and liaisoning. We have hundreds of student-led organizations on campus, and so they need a select committee of student leaders who are able to advocate for their interests, be able to again liaise with them, and be able to invite them aboard on all the decision-making body that the Senate, for example, any policy that the Senate were to put forward, they would take those policies and invite our VCU chairs to the table and be able to invite their opinion. When it comes to expanding that to the local community, something that I realized that worked for me anecdotally were your guys' Instagram advertisements that went out to try to gain insight for the parking plans, right? Those worked really well. I saw them, about like 10 times within a week. And so certain things like that were whether it be paid advertisement, whether it be postage, signage, whether it be going onto campus, right? Being able to have students who know the rules and the policies regarding ad signage on campus, those who have access to student-wide channels. About 50% of Isla Vista, right, are student or around college-age individuals, right? We have faculty members, we have other community members, and being able to access them require going about different channels specifically tailored to them as individuals. They have different lifestyles, they have different hotspots, they have different third places, if you guys are familiar with the kind of sociological term. And because of that, they all kind of operate with data and those invitations to become a part of the political process differently. And so either identifying a task team, a fire team, or some type of a committee similar to how we've developed or devised it in AS, again, to kind of prioritize and learn those different learn how to identify different accesses to different channels, because everybody's going to interpret and interact with data differently. And so I only hope that, in seating at the table, beginning that kind of research and beginning to kind of sift through what works, what doesn't. I'm sure you guys have records on how on who has actually interacted with things from Instagram versus how did you interact with the survey, things like that. And being able to make use of that data, I think, is extremely critical. Thank you.
What will success for you in this role look like a year from now? In your mind, what kind of things create an experience of success?
I come from a military family, like a very large military family. My brother's a Marine. My dad was a naval aviator. Both my grandparents served in the 20th century. They've kind of instilled in me this like a very solid foundational sense of service. And throughout my time, whether it be all the way back as in like middle school or high school, right, and working forward in volunteer service, and now in college as a student leader in our associated students, and hopefully within a more professional context in the IVCSD. Political change is not a spontaneous combustion. It's not this, unless we're lucky, right? This beautiful policy that seeks to overhaul an entire community. It's slow. And ultimately, success to me is making sure that every step you take is forward. It's, if you have to take two steps back, it's 3 steps more forward. It's always 1% better. There are certain circumstances where we may have to either cut programs, whether it be for budgeting constraints, whether it be tax revenue wasn't as expected year over year, whether it be a grant is going to expire and we haven't identified a suitable alternative. There are large issues where it's like, we may feel like we have to make decisions that, whether it be to cut services or whether it be which God forbid, denial of service of what leaders in this space have built over the years. We have to make sure that, number one, that this type of service, this type of district, this type of advocacy and representation that we have for our residents here in Isla Vista is perpetuated, is maintained. And anything after that, anything type of expansion of service, any type of thing where we are getting into a new arena that we weren't previously before, whether it be advocating on behalf of students whose windows and doors are leaking every time it rains, whether they have cracked foundation and you can see the tile in their kitchen actively spreading apart, inviting water into their homes, where we may not be able to directly solve what ails them, we'll be able to create this kind of arsenal of data and use it in our advocacy measures to enhance the quality of life, to enhance the services that we provide, whether it be related to transportation, whether it be working with our sheriffs to try to make sure that everybody here knows that parking is a problem. It's not just my fear, but other students' fears about the new laws that have been passed and now are enacted about painting red curbs in front of what I believe like 20, 25 feet in front of the stop signs on the right-hand side of streets. That is going to be a significant issue and is going to potentially generate a lot of revenue for the county. And that's why I think we need to find a way to work together with our community, with our partners here, and we're seated with us at the table, as we're also not seated with us at the table, and kind of work forward that way. And so to me, success is the perpetuation of the community services district and maintaining always this kind of goal of expansion of services and enhancing their quality of life moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you attended or watched a board meeting of IVCSD or some other elected body? Was there an issue raised that you felt strongly about? How would you express your stance on the issue? If you were on the board and it came time to cast your vote, what role would community concerns, state, local, and federal laws, the input of staff and board members, and your own values and beliefs have in determining your vote?
When I was first introduced to civics, I was studying in my AP US history class, who was also the teacher, he doubled as the mayor of my city. And so being able to learn from him directly really provided me a little bit more perspective. And so I would trust that some of you have studied as well, the Politico trustee or delegate model of kind of decision-making of political representatives. And I personally, when it comes to sitting in on problems and trying to best understand, most of my approach has been, at least to my decision-making, has been kind of the delegate approach. I try to base most, if not all, of my decisions on data. That comes from my very quantitative background, and it's incredibly important for just ensuring that all of the factors and all of the information that we have on hand is extremely relevant to the question at hand. When it comes to actually sitting in on board meetings or committee work, I am no stranger to these things. I've sat in on Associated Student Senate meetings that go from 6:30 to 11 p.m. every Wednesday. Even not sitting on the board, I actively sit on them as the Attorney General to help provide legal code review and work, and as well as a kind of guidance and perspective on the code. And I use that expertise to my advantage in helping to enact additional change. Very recently, one thing that I've been inspired about, and so we can wrap up, is I got a text on my phone saying that there were no tampons in the library bathrooms. Within a week, we had just like a small group of students, surveyed, backed by data, that said that they would appreciate having that access, 24/7. Makes perfect sense, right? It's actually a rudimentary thing when you think about it. It took about 2 additional weeks to secure funding for being able to actually acquire tampons in bulk and be able to supply them into our campus facilities. And so this was something that that I've introduced into the Senate committee. I've deemed it our civil service goals. It's called the Civil Society Project, and it's been allocated up to $50,000 in funding to allocate for things like drug overdose prevention, whether for things related to tampons and condoms in campus facilities. When it comes to researching or expanding access to mental health services, these are things that we're actively working on now on campus, and we hope to bring that type of advocacy into the space moving forward. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Eric. Do board members have any other questions they want to ask? I'll ask the question that I'm asking everyone, which is on the timeline, can you commit to serve out the term of office to November 2026 if you're appointed?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. All right. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much, Eric. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Not of Eric, but just I noticed Madeline isn't on this schedule, and so I was just curious.
I emailed you guys a couple hours ago that she was good. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out, Director Freeman, and that is why we have moved up Annabelle's interview, and so we will go ahead and start off with Annabelle. Thank you for joining us, and
sorry for being late.
no problem. You are very much on time.
Okay.
Please feel free to start off by just sharing a little bit of information about yourself, your background, and yeah.
Hi, my name is Annabelle. I'm a second-year anthropology and global studies student at UCSD. So this is my first year living in Isla Vista, and it has been like one of the most fun and rewarding experiences I've ever had. One, living by myself has been actually nothing like I expected it to be, and up to constant change. but it's been so fun to be able to live in Isla Vista where things are constantly going on, things are constantly happening, and culture is emerging around us as like we speak. My background is a lot in like kind of civic service in high school and into the last year, into the last presidential election. I've worked a lot in like voter registration work. So in high school, that meant I was going around to every single one of my like classrooms of students that were eligible to vote and getting people registered, which a lot of people didn't understand how that worked or knew they had the ability to do that. And then when I got here, it's harder to do that here because a lot of people aren't registered to vote in Isla Vista and more so registered in their like hometowns or whatnot. But a lot of people, I've worked on this little campaign where you basically send little postcards to disenfranchised voters in usually like very, very, very small and like kind of disenfranchised communities in the South. And it's been really rewarding to like hear back from the people that we're working for and like see that people are actually like turning out to the polls a lot more. I've also, over the last summer, I worked as a political canvasser for Proposition 32, which seek to raise the minimum wage from $16 to $18 an hour. That didn't pass. I was very bummed about it, but it taught me a lot about, I'm from Los Angeles, it taught me a lot about Los Angeles, like city bureaucracy and a lot about how things work and how processes like move on not only the city level, but also the state level. And then when I was in high school, I also had the opportunity to work on the LA County City Mayor's Youth Council, which we proposed kind of like actions that could take place in Los Angeles we got grouped by our local community and local areas and worked with other students our age to propose a campaign on to fix something we cared about in LA. And so my group worked on a water supply chain problem. So as we all know, California has been in a drought for a very long time as we're finally exiting it, hopefully. But our goal was to figure out ways that we can promote people from stopping to use their like, what are they called? Sprinklers on their lawns and getting people to move away from using grass lawns and having grass lawns. And so we were promoting to have either like tax cut on buying like outdoor like rocks and stuff to make California look more like Arizona, if that was the example I gave Spencer earlier. I feel like that's not the best, but promote more like rocks and cacti and native California plants that don't require a lot of water usage and stuff like that. And we got to produce our plan in front of other LA City what are they called? Like leaders, I guess you could say. Like there was the board members, and it was a very nerve-wracking experience. And they gave us a lot of feedback on our campaign and taught us a lot of ways in which we can improve it, but also ways that they thought it would have worked a lot, and that was really rewarding. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. We'll go ahead and start with the questions.
All right, for the first question, why do you want to join the IVCSD board?
Yeah, so when I was choosing the college I wanted to go to, I was originally an anthropology major, well, I still am. And the nice thing about anthropology is every school kind of has a great department for it because it's such a broad like subject. So I was really looking for what type of community I wanted when I was going to college. And the nice thing about Isla Vista is like you really don't find these communities anywhere. It's really hard to find a very, very condensed small town environment in such a big county. And the like innate sense of culture and community that Isla Vista have is just like absolutely miraculous to me. One of my favorite things to do is like when I'm biking back from class, like just hearing like the music like going throughout the entire city and like being able to like meet people from so many different backgrounds who just like most of the time came here to study or have lived here for a couple of years or went to UCSB at one point or now are just like staying here and like working in the greater Santa Barbara neighborhood. And so I really want to give back to that. I really want to like be a part of this culture and be a part of what makes Santa Barbara and Isla Vista great. And just because I think it's so unique and I think it's really hard to find something like this.
Our next question is, what would you do if you believed you needed more accurate and complete information in order to make a board decision?
So I would usually just go down like the chain of command. All of you have, I'm assuming, served here for at least some time and understand a lot of the things that goes on in Isla Vista. There's nothing wrong with asking your partners and asking your fellow board members. But if not, and if none of us could ever like figure out a solution to a problem, if we have to outsource like someone who knows what's going on and someone who knows how to fix it. So like regarding like the lights issue that you guys are working on, I highly doubt a lot of us know about like the bureaucracy of how to get like a light installed or what needs to go into it to fix something that's broken. Having to outsource that is always a wonderful thing, and being able to propose a budget and being able to propose like or use a budget, I mean, to like or buy someone, that sounds terrible, to like help us is always like the best way to do it.
Next question is, how would you collect and respond to feedback from Isla Vista residents and community members?
So I said that I was a canvasser over the summer, and canvassing for the city council member that I was very hard because he was a very contentious figure in LA politics. But the nice thing I've noticed about Isla Vista is it is one of the nicest communities ever. And I think going around door to door and knocking on people's doors if I had to would honestly be very fun. Recently, this is a very like side note, but recently someone lost their cat in IV, and they were just going around like asking people if they had seen it. And when they came to our door, I unfortunately told them that I hadn't, but when I asked them how it was going, he was saying that like the people you were talking to were so nice about it and were willing to spread the word. I would always be willing to, I would be always down to canvas. It's very fun to do when people actually want to listen to you and support you, which there is no reason that Isla Vista residents would not be. But also a 24-hour like anonymous like hotline, I guess you could say, would always work. Like I was scrolling through like your guys's like Instagram and social media presence, and it is really good. Like people are constantly engaging with it. Events that are happening are constantly being reposted like on other people's like Instagrams and stuff like that. It's really like getting out to all of the community like members in Isla Vista. Having like just like a link to a like 24-hour like Google form of like, hey, like I'm having this grievance with the community. Is there any way you can do it? Is always a really good way to like gain to get people's questions in without having them to like get up and go somewhere. So yeah.
What will success for you in this role look like a year from now? In your mind, what kind of things create the experience of success?
Personally, I like seeing physical success. So whether that be from like seeing something I planned to actually like succeed, or someone telling me that I did a good job, that's really all I need to like feel success. So you guys like run a lot of like really incredible events. Like I was telling Spencer earlier, like the Halloween event is one of my like favorite things to do. And when I was a freshman here, it was like the coolest thing ever that like, hey, like, yeah, like Ivy's closed for the weekend, but like we have this beautiful like fair going on where we can like hang out and meet like new people in the area. Like that is so cool. And so if I like, I'm telling you guys that now, but if someone had told me that something I ran had been going well, like the sense of joy and satisfaction I would gain from that would be super immense. But also like seeing something I run really well is like really important. I think that like gaining like constructive feedback is also a part of success, and like learning from mistakes and moving on from them like is very important. And I don't think you
board members
Okay.
Jamie, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Alright, cool.
Okay. Please proceed.
So personally, I have not been to a meeting of IVCSD. I didn't even know this existed until Thursday. So this is a very, very last minute application for me. But and I haven't been to a board meeting of another type of like governance like this. But I think that personal experience and the experience of others are very, very important. So I was noticing on your website that you guys had like a initiative to improve lights. A couple weeks ago, I was like biking home from the co-op at night with just like a can of tomato sauce in my hand when I got like hit by a car, and which like sounds insane. It wasn't that bad, but neither of us were at fault. I didn't see the car backing out of the driveway. He didn't see me coming through because it was so dark and we were under a light that wasn't like shining bright enough. And I think that the personal experiences of community members in Isla Vista is one of the most important things when it comes to like voting on like propositions, I guess you could say. I think that obviously like the things I would want to be done are never something that can be done with just like my beliefs and like the beliefs of community members, as a lot of us probably have rather extreme beliefs when it comes to like simple things like lights. They're not something that can be replaced within a couple hours. Like you have to go through the bureaucracy of Santa Barbara County. But I think in accordance with federal laws, and like yes, they might take a while to get passed, but things can happen. You just have to make sure that you are both appeasing the people that live around you and appeasing the majorities, and making sure that if you are not in the majority, you are making sure the minorities feel heard. And like following state laws, things can get passed. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for those answers to the questions. Are there any other questions that board members want to ask? I'll just go ahead and share the one I've been asking everyone, which is if you're appointed to the position, will you be able to serve until the end of November 2026?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on the board? Okay, excellent. So I want to thank everyone that's had a chance to apply and interview with us. You know, you've all demonstrated such a passion to improving the lives of your neighbors. And I think that is something that's really special. That's something that's ingrained in what makes our community special, that desire for service. And you all have identified what I think we all in this room know, which is that the democratic process starts here at the local level. And this is the chance where you can really get to make a difference. So it gratifies me to know that there are people in this community that share that feeling, that really want to embody the maxim of leaving a place better than you found it. So thank you for that. It's also not easy to put yourself through a job interview in public. And if you thought that was awkward, get ready to watch us debate about how you did in public. This is the wonderful ways of California state law and open meetings, and it's an important, transparent part of the process. But I just wanted to address that elephant in the room because it is an interesting thing. Some of us on the board have gone through it before and recognize that. So I just thought it'd be good to give voice to that. The other thing that's a lot different is that in most interviews, that we all have been a part of, that our staff, that you all may have been a part of, you're either being interviewed or you're interviewing someone that you're going to be hiring or maybe managing. This is a lot different because we are picking a colleague. We're picking someone that's an equal to us, that's going to have the same rights, responsibilities, and roles that we do. And so I think that, in thinking about that decision, I first want to talk about like just some of the things that are important to me from an applicant. One is that does the candidate have the skills needed to be a good board member, including communication, listening, patience, ability to work collaboratively? Does the candidate already show leadership in different corners of their community? And while experience is important to me, I also know that when I first joined the board, I was 19 years old and didn't really have a lot on my resume. And I know that others can empathize with that as well. That's what makes our community special, is that we are a community with a median age of about 21. So we're never going to get the people that have the super lengthy resumes, except for Carrie and Kirsten, to be in positions of leadership. But that's also what makes us so unique. So that, like I said, experience is important to me, but it's not something that is weighted necessarily the same as its other qualities. I was impressed by everyone that interviewed, and so it's going to be hard for me to pick what my top 3 is. And I want to hear from the rest of my colleagues before we talk more about it. But I figured I would just open up the discussion with that. So board members have any discussion? Dr. Freeman.
So interestingly, coming here, looking just at the resumes and thinking about like plugging holes and things, I was most excited about the person who decided to drop out of the process because of her work in setting up and then working on a library advisory council. So putting that person aside and continuing with the process, coming here today, I then looking at all the resumes and everything, I had been, honestly, I had started with, it was very difficult to decide based on things, but I had started with Esteban based on his extremely long track record of working in related areas that go back further than my even being in college, much less in high school. However, Annabelle, the answer that you gave for why you wanted to be on this board that described what you found special about this community moved me. And I already was excited by the work that you had done with the Los Angeles Mayor's office going back to 2021. And so my top choice right now is you, Annabelle. My second choice continues to be Esteban, and continuing from there, a little harder to choose, but because Sarah's work in Surfrider is something we end up working closely with Surfrider and various things, I have Sarah next and then Aaron. But that's my preliminary ranking here. That's where, for people who read the process, we provide preliminary ranking. That is my preliminary.
Okay.
Thank you, Director. And yes, and I neglected to give a reminder that I think board members should have a copy of the appointment policy. And so the stage that we're at in the process right now is deliberating the different qualities of each candidate. And there's the opportunity, or actually, I believe it's the expectation that you share your preliminary ranking of the candidates. And that is what Director Freeman just did. And I'm glad you started out reading this policy.
I just want to say, I feel like this is very hard because I think that everybody is so passionate about this community, and there wasn't a single person that spoke that I didn't feel understood what it would mean to be a part of this board. And so that makes it very difficult because I just feel like everybody is so passionate, and I wish that we just have everybody on the board. Don't know if I have a preliminary ranking yet. I think I need a little bit more time to think about that, but I really felt that what Annabelle shared about what being an IB feels like is just so key to why I decided to join this board as well. And I actually decided to join before even living in IB, but had kind of experienced it just coming from campus to IB and things like that. But it's just such a magical place, and I think that it's important to have somebody on the board that sees that. So I'm going to say right now.
I can go next. For Annabelle, I thought the stuff you talked about with the LA City Council was very interesting, like how you worked with your peers to propose policy. I thought that was a very important thing for this sort of work. For Esteban, I loved just how much community dedication you've shown in your resume, like how much you've worked in the I Live Vista community on all those different projects that you talked about, all those different task forces. And also like the talk about AS and like the recycling initiatives that you did, and like your work on like writing or applying for grants and that sort of stuff. I think that's very important experience to have. And for Eric, I thought your AS resume was very impressive, and all the work you've done as an AS senator and attorney general and working with the Pardall Center. like Pardal Center, that's a very important aspect of IV. So I think that that's very important. And also what you talked about with the outreach stuff, I thought that was very interesting. And how to use data and like focus on respondents and collecting all this data for making decisions. I thought that was like a very important specific example of something that you can bring to this board, which is why I think I would rank you as my first choice. Esteban, your experience makes me want to rank you as my second. And Annabelle, even though your work in LA was very interesting, I think I have to rank you third. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Plott.
Okay, sure. I also was really excited that we had so many good candidates. And as we mentioned, we're looking for somebody who's going to sit over here at this table with us and have conversations with us and bring their own expertise and thoughts to it. And, I really could see any of you there and any of you doing a good job. Esteban, I was a little concerned that I thought you talked too much and that you weren't to the point quickly enough. And so that made me a little hesitant about thinking about serving on a board with you. I thought, Eric, you had such a great package of experience and obviously deeply know what goes on here and how to make things happen and what your responsibilities are. I also have known a lot of people with that military family background, and I know that it really is deeply ingrained in you than the public service. So I really enjoyed your answers a lot. And then Annabelle, I just loved your enthusiasm. And I liked a lot that you were so concrete about things and that you define success as like a physical accomplishment. And that kind of resonates with me. So I think you are my first choice and Eric is my second.
Okay. Oh, well, I guess I'm the last one to go.
I just had one.
Go ahead.
I realized I haven't ranked the person that left the room.
Would you like to do that?
Well, I guess she would just be fourth, but I was just wondering, like, she's still in the running?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Well, I think my colleagues have shared a lot of the thoughts that I've already had about the interviews that you've given and the different qualities that you have. I want to talk about each of them. Esteban, I was really stricken by your history in the community. I think it's awesome that you're involved in the IVCSD Civic Leadership Initiative, which I'm going to give a plug for. Among many other reasons for the program's forming, it is to help train people in the community to be a part of making change in the community. So I'm really glad that we have an applicant from this class of CLA, and it was really nice to meet you when I was there tonight. I think your history working with student groups and your understanding of local politics is really admirable. And I think that your continued volunteer work in the community is really valuable. For Eric, I've had the chance to know Eric since you were a first-year student. And when you were first volunteering with some of the voter registration efforts that we had in Isla Vista, then I got to watch you throughout your time in Associated Students, and you definitely have a master reputation in Associated Students of really trying to get to the root of problems and handling things with tact and diplomacy. And I think that is something that is really valuable and something that you should not lose. And I think that that your energy and spirit when it comes to creative ideas and projects that we could take on is something that is really well taken. I thought that Sarah, my notes on Sarah go. I really appreciated that she was connected with some of the organizations that we work with on a regular basis. Surfrider in particular has been really involved in parking and will continue to be really crucial as we start to implement more of our parking plan. And so I was really happy to see she's involved in that. I can think back in years past, particularly with some of the safety issues we have in this community that have affected young women, that having someone from a background that's in the panelist sorority system is something that's really valuable in terms of pushing out information, in terms of trying to spread resources. And I know that that stems back to my work with Catherine Flaherty when she was one of our board members, who did that really well. So I thought that that was certainly of value. And for Annabelle, I was also really stricken by your statement of purpose for why you are so passionate about living here. I think you really succinctly described what a lot of us feel for this community, which is just love for the culture, for the different populations of people that live here, and how this was you sort of chose to come here because you saw that energy and wanted to be a part of it. And I think you're definitely speaking my language when you're talking about collecting feedback from canvassing, because that's something that I know that is something that's been ingrained in our organization, but also is definitely a core part of my background, how I got started. And I also appreciated, like Carrie did, about your sort of concrete defining of success, about learning from mistakes, and about working collaboratively with us on the board and with our staff to try to find solutions to things. So with all of that said, I know that it was really difficult for me, and I actually was even telling Jonathan beforehand that in some of the past appointments we've done, I've gone in thinking okay, I've got this person who's probably head and shoulders above other people. I'm looking forward to seeing what the interviews are like, but I kind of have a predisposition or whatever. And with this class, you were also equal. I didn't really have a whole lot of predispositions. So this is my preliminary ranking, and I think that I will emphasize preliminary because I want us to have more discussion. I would rank Annabelle first, Eric second, Esteban third, and Sarah fourth. And I'm going to have to be better with being more succinct too.
You're pretty good, Spencer. You're pretty good.
Okay. Go ahead.
That leaves me. Yeah, I was gonna say, Esteban, I was really blown away by your involvement here in IB since when you went to school here and then up until now. And I really think that you have a lot of unique experiences here that are really valuable. I do feel like being a student here, I think that it's important to me to have student representation on the board. I think that, keeping in mind the population of IB and the median age and things like that, I just feel like it's not only is it important for the personal experience of being a student here, but also I think that, the more that we can get students involved in IVCSD, the more that we can see people aware of IVCSD, because like Annabelle said, I was not aware of it until you came and spoke at the alumni panel, and I just think that having more student involvement would really make this something that is well known to everybody that comes here and lives in IB and everything. And Eric, I felt like you just had so many things that you've been involved in with the AS and all of that, and I feel like that's also very valuable experience that you would be bringing to the table. I felt like you were very succinct, you were very almost technical with everything, which I think is very helpful for getting things done and for being able to really get to the core of the issues and the things that we talk about here. But I felt like the one thing that really stuck out to me was Annabelle's just emotion with it. I felt like you were very connected to the purpose of this board and to the way that it benefits people. And I feel like just talking about IB and what makes it special and about the culture of it, I think that for me at least, what's most important with being on this board is taking everybody into account in IB and the unique culture that we do have here. And I feel like the way that you spoke about that put you at my one spot. And then I think that I would have Eric at 2 and Esteban at 3. And then I didn't think about Sarah, but I felt like Sarah had some really great connections, but I just didn't feel like she explained the questions concretely enough for me. I felt like it was, I wanted to hear a little bit more about like specific things that she was interested in doing, so I have her as 4.
Okay. So go back to our policy then, that we will have preliminary rankings. So this is the chance when I'm trying to make sure I get this right. So the first thing that we are going to do is the voting will take place in rounds. The first round, instead of nominating a person and then us voting on appointing a person, we are going to vote for our first choice in this round. And if there is a majority at this point, which I take to mean a majority of the entire board of directors, which would be 4 votes, then we will then proceed to a nomination. If there's not a majority, then we will eliminate candidates that are at the bottom of rankings. I'm going to ask for your first place vote, and we'll start with Director Freeman.
Annabelle.
Director Topcliffe.
Annabelle.
I vote Annabelle.
And Eric.
Okay, that is 4 votes for a majority, and so at this point, I would entertain a motion. Let's get the formal motion done. So if someone want to make a
I will
motion,
move to appoint Annabelle to the vacant board position.
okay,
I'll second it.
seconded by Blatt. Any public comment on the motion?
Annabelle Sipos.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I should keep my
Sipos.
name in there.
Pronunciation.
Sipos.
Sipos, okay. Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and congratulations. All right.
And thank you, other candidates. We hope to see you again.
Yeah, I want to make a just brief statement to, well, the both of you that are still here, and I'll pass this along to Sarah as well, but I really hope that you do continue to stay involved. And part of the calculus for me is that I know that regardless, it's not about any position for you. You're going to be involved in the community and trying to make it better. Regardless of what your role is, you're going to find a role, whether that's volunteer or whether that's in student government or something else. And so I really treasure that. I really appreciate it. And I know we haven't heard the last of you yet. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and
Very nice to meet you.
now the next meeting of the board of directors will take place next Tuesday, February 11th at 6 p.m. on Zoom and here in the community room at 970 Embarcadero Del Mar, Isla Vista, California. With that, we are adjourned.
We have future items.
Future items, please,
Not so
Comment.
fast.
please describe.
I just wanted to confirm if March 1st worked for everybody for the board retreat. From what I heard, it does. Annabelle, does it work for you?
I will find out right now.
Oh yeah, I was supposed to ask this to everybody.
Yeah,
Man,
it's okay. We have a board retreat in this room from like 10 to 3 on March 1st.
Yeah.
Saturday, I think.
Oh, what time?
It's a Saturday, like 10 to 3, but it's a flexible time.
Okay, I have a midterm or a final at 4 p.m. But wait,
On Saturday.
March 1st.
yeah, the language finals. But
Oh.
that's
yeah.
not finals week, is it?
I think it's the week before. I
It's-
think
yeah.
it's the week before that.
Okay, then I'm good. Yeah.
You're good, yeah. Then we're good. That's the
Hey,
only.
Hey,
We have
good
enough
job.
students here that we're not scheduling anything during finals. I hope.
Do that. Hopefully not.
No.
The Saturday before finals would be March 8th.
Okay, then yeah, I'm good.
Great.
Okay.
That was it. Just needed to confirm the March 1st.
Okay.
Okay, excellent.
did it.
We'll all adjourn the meeting and thanks everyone.
What happens now?
Well, Annabelle, you did sign the oath of office.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
can
we
reveal
did.
this.
What's up?
We
Good
didn't
night,
do the
everyone.
formal.
Good
Good night,
night,
Jamie.
Jamie.
We didn't do the formal swearing in. Do you want to do it
Let's do it
at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
but we'll.
I'm moving too fast, trying to get, orderly business done.
You did a really nice
I'm
job.
Annabelle.
Good to meet you.
Thanks.
You did really nice.
This is
Jay,
the-
I'm like
the
totally
syllabus
modded now.